Hello and welcome. In today's video, we are going to start embroidering on our wildflower grouping. We're going to start with the one with the jar. You can start with the flowers in a row if you would like, with the few stitches we're learning today. So today we're going to learn 3 stitches. They're very similar stitches, very easy stitches. The first is the back stitch. That is the most common stitch that you're going to learn. There's a couple variations, but we're not going to get into those right now, where this is a beginner's course. Then we're going to do a running stitch and then the straight stitch. Very simple stitches. So let me introduce myself. I'm Jackie with Jackie Russell Creates, where we talk about everything quilting and embroidery. I give tips, tricks, and techniques so you can conquer that next project that you have been wanting to do. I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when I upload the next video in this series. You don't want to miss any of it. There's going to be some new, different embroidery stitches that I have just learned myself. So let's get started on working with these 3 simple stitches: the running stitch, the back stitch, and the straight stitch. Okay, so we have our hoop dressed, which if you missed that video, I will link it in the description. We have our needle threaded. I am using 3 strands of 320. And if you want to learn how to knot and thread your needle, I'll leave that description below. So we're going to start with the center petals or leaves, stems. So you just put your needle through and pull it all the way. You're going to have your knot that's securing it in. And then you're going to make your first stitch. And then you're going to pull it through. So there's your first stitch. After I get my first stitch done, I like to trim off the tail if it's kind of long, so I don't get tangled in anything. And then you're going to come up in front of this stitch, pull it through, and go back down where the stitch, your first stitch, was at. That's why it's called the back stitch, because you're going to come up from on the front and then down in that same spot from the last stitch. Now this is called the stab and poke. So you're stabbing up and poking down. You can do the sewing method, which is where you come up, you go down the same spot, and then you're just going to use your finger and guide it and come up in one motion. So down. And you want to try to keep your stitches fairly equal, even. Dimensions. So you can see where it's kind of laying flat. If it gets kind of bubbly like this one where it's not laying 100% flat, I just take my needle, drop it, just kind of run my hand through my thread and let it twist and unwind, and then start again. And that's how you do the back stitch. So the back stitch is done on the jar and your branches or your stems. So next, I'm not going to finish this whole thing. I'll just do a couple here more. So I'm right here at the jar. This stitch, the white or cream is going to be on top. So I want to make sure that I'm coming up right at that intersection, so then it makes it look like the white will be on top of the stems. Okay, so we're up to this first set of leaves, and because it is a short space, I would just come up and make your first stitch, and then start doing your back stitch. Now we're up to the other flower, and I'm going to show you how to tie off, because you don't want to go and stretch your thread across where there's not going to be any embroidery, because then you can see it through once you're done. So this is what I like to do. I like to run it down a couple stitches. Just run it through. And then I'm going to run it through again, leaving a loop, and put my needle through, making a little knot. And I'll make another knot in that same spot. And then I just kind of run the tail up again in a few stitches, and then trim it off. So that's how you do a back stitch. Now we're going to take 7, 12. We're going to actually use all 6 strands, and we're going to make the running stitch. You'll use the same color around the jar, but that is doing the back stitch. So the running stitch is where the bees' little curly things are. So you're going to come up, and you're going to pull it all the way through, and then you have your knot securing it on the back. You're going to go down, and that's going to be your first stitch. You're going to leave a little bit of space. Normally, you will leave the, however big your stitch is, that's how big you'll leave your space in between. is a rule of thumb, but it is not 100%. You pull it up, make sure it comes all the way through, and poke it down. And you can see here, hopefully, where I just did one long stitch with the pin, but I want to leave that space. So I'm just going to leave that space because I use the friction pin so it will come off once I heat it up. And we're going to make that stitch. Now, some people like to cut this extra fabric off. I don't, because I put it in my quilts. So I'm doing the stab and poke method. Once again, you can also do the sewing method. So for the sewing method, you come up, you'll go down, leave a little space, come up, pull it all the way through. Kind of like if you were basting on your quilts. I like to use the stab and poke method when I'm going around a curve. So I use 6 strands going around the jar and the little curly Q things. Now to tie this off, you don't have as many strands on the back as you do the back stitch. So I come just to the next one and make that knot. And go through and make a knot again, just to help secure. And then I'll bring it up a couple other stitches and trim it off. And that is the running stitch. Now you have just a straight stitch, which is done on the bee's antennas, and it is also done right here on the jar to give the dimensions. So I'm just going to show that. So a straight stitch, you just come up and make a straight line. Pretty simple. Then you'll move on to the next, and I'm going to do all of these stitches here without finishing off. And I just do the smallest section as possible. And I'm only doing this because this is a cream color on white fabric. And it's a small enough space that you're not going to see much of it. So I was doing the sewing method. And here's the stab and poke method. Now, I would not go from here to here. I would work my back stitch and then get to them as a straight stitch. But those are your 3 stitches: the back stitch, the running stitch, and the straight stitch. So I hope you got something out of this video and that you learned how to do the straight stitch, the running stitch, and the back. In the next video, we're going to learn the satin stitch and the French knot stitch and the lazy daisy stitch. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can make sure you get that video. Maybe give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends that may enjoy learning embroidery as well. Coming up on, if you'd like to support the channel, maybe hit the join button and get some extra perks for being a member of my channel. Or maybe buy me a coffee that's in the link description below. Or check out my Amazon store of some of my favorite items that I use. Coming up on screen now is a video that YouTube feels that you may be interested in. If you're not, maybe check out that playlist right there underneath it that has some more embroidery tips, tricks, and techniques. Until then, happy quilting and embroidering, my friends.